Morning, everybody. I'm Attorney Levin. What you just heard, Shawn and Wyatt bearing their souls so they could let the public know and understand their feelings and their motives for initiating a suit against the City of Hartford for the wrongful death of firefighter Shawn Bell and other members of the department who had responsibility to prevent that. This was done, as painful as it was, because they recognized that as personal and tragic of an event this was for them as a family, it was also a community tragedy. And they knew that the public would need to hear from them. But now that they've done that, they are going to go back to their private lives and withhold further comment or discussion about this so that the judicial process can play out. This morning, we've committed the legal process to the marshal who's delivered it. We'll be delivering it to the appropriate representatives to be served. It'll be returnable to the Hartford Superior Court in the coming weeks. We've distributed for your benefit a copy of the complaint, and in it contains all the legal claims and the remedies, what's being complained about in this wrongful death suit. You'll notice when you read it that the language is not couched in terms of mistakes that have been made, errors that have been committed, because this is not a negligence case. You don't send firefighters into a building that's burning and smoke-filled with faulty and ill-maintained equipment, knowing that you're not doing the things that you need to do to make sure that their life safety equipment functions as it's supposed to. That's not negligence. It's actually incomprehensible. You don't pair up a junior firefighter with a lieutenant who didn't have it drilled into his head that you don't abandon your partner. You don't leave the building without your partner. And if somehow you do get separated, then you immediately use every strength that your body possesses to communicate over the radio. And if that doesn't work, you come out of the building when you're ordered to evacuate, as occurred, and you scream and you yell, "Bell's inside. Somebody's got to go get Bell." In fact, there was a rapid intervention team, as there is in every fire, and their only job is to stand there and be ready to enter into the building to rescue an incapacitated or a trapped firefighter. That's what they do. They're not even allowed to lend their equipment to the firefighters who are on scene for other purposes because they have a function. That's all they do. And it's inexplicable also that the incident command waited 8 minutes and 3 seconds after minutes ticked by following the evacuation order. They were actually calling for Bell. They were calling for engine 16, and there was no response. And reportedly, there were members of the rapid intervention team who've spoken with our investigators privately, and they've acknowledged that they were pleading with the incident command to send them in. So as the minutes went by, firefighter Bell's air ran out. His time ran out. You know, the accountability train's coming, and we've waited a year and, a month to complete our investigation and hear from everybody that we could hear from. And we waited until after the political season was over. The family did not want to be involved in local politics. This goes beyond politics. So here we are. Oh, by the way, it's 20 seconds, Shawn. I checked the math. The rapid intervention team took 20 seconds from the time they were given the order to go in by the incident command. They found your brother, your husband, your father, within 20 seconds at the top of the stairs inside the doorway to the right. 20 seconds. This wasn't a high rise. All right, thank you for your time.
Any questions?
Questions?
You're naming 3 individuals in addition to the City of Hartford. Are they individually potentially liable for damages in relation to this suit,
Yes.
even though they're in the purview of their employment with the City of Hartford?
Yes, and there are indemnification statutes, several different ones under them. the city may have an obligation to indemnify them, basically like an insurance policy. But depending upon the findings of what they did, there are circumstances where the indemnification provisions of the statute wouldn't provide coverage for certain kinds of things. They vary. Under certain indemnification statutes, certain kinds of intentional or willful acts are covered. Under others, they're not. It's kind of a complicated thicket of statutes that they put together here.
What were the rumors that led you to file a defamation part of the lawsuit?
I'm not going to repeat them on TV. They're in the complaint, and people have heard them enough, and I'm not going to re-register them for the viewing pleasure of the people who started those rumors.
And are you alleging that the wrong statements were made by the fire department or individuals?
There are circumstances that lead us to believe that rumors were started, and the administration was aware of those rumors, and it's conceivable that some of the rumors were based on information which was refracted to be untrue, but came from some sort of a sense of things that they've been told. And the problem is once the rumors didn't change much over time, because there were different members of fire departments throughout the state, we checked, and they all heard the same kinds of things. And these are guys that they fell in the line of duty. It was incomprehensible. Obviously, this is a wrongful death claim, but these guys are honoring. I mean, they're saving lives. They're putting themselves in harm's way. They acknowledge. I mean, any firefighter that goes into the building, they accept the risk that there may be an uncontrollable blaze or a flare-up or an explosion that occurs and they lose their life. But they don't accept the risk that they're not going to have an incident command that's going to take care of them. They aren't going to have equipment that's going to be proper. That people aren't going to rescue them that are there to rescue them should they need rescuing. These aren't the kinds of risks that you accept. And when somebody does fall on the line of duty, I mean, my kids grew up, they were young during September 11th, and we taught them, firefighters are heroes, and they're taught, and this is how they're respected. And then we saw this kind of defamation and dribble coming out about that was untrue about what he was and what he did and why he died. And it was just incomprehensible that the department would either have contributed to the rumors or would not have taken steps to squash them. It's like dumping on a man's grave, and I mean, a hero at that. So we feel pretty strongly that it needs to be redressed.
The air tank, I'm sorry I'm out here.
Yeah, no problem.
That's obviously a big part of this lawsuit. Can you talk about that a little bit about, obviously there was a lot of investigating going on since Kevin Bell's death, and how big that is to your case?
It's so multifactorial. I mean, I'll answer your question. The air tank was tested by NIOSH and was found to fail the remaining service life test, which is a pass-fail test. It's either meets the standard or it doesn't. So it was deficient, and the secondary alarm didn't go off. And frankly, the people who were in the room at the time were Lieutenant Maury and Kevin, and so we haven't heard from Lieutenant Maury. He's not spoken to us under oath as yet. Kevin's dead. But it's not just the air tank. It's, when you wear these air tanks, you have to have them fit tested because they go over your face. And if they don't fit securely, then air gets out, so you lose air quicker, especially under exertion, than you would have under normal circumstances. So they don't last for the rated service time of 30 minutes or 25 minutes. If there's air escaping, there's also contaminants from the atmosphere getting in, which means that you're poisoning yourself when you're trying to breathe in a mixture of oxygen. So they had a broken fit testing machine for some period of time that they knew about and they complained about. In fact, the union had been asking them reportedly, not only about that, but because of the mandatory live fire training. These aren't technical kinds of courses that you have to pass in order to have a license. It's sort of like when you're in the Army and you're given ammunition, but you were taught how to shoot a gun 3 years or 4 years ago, but now your skills are stale and you don't react the same way you should under the chaotic conditions of a live fire. That's why they have these mandatory hours of training. It's a state mandated, it's national standards as well. And I forget the exact numbers, but there was something like 16,000 required hours over the department every year that where they simulate how people react and make command and control decisions in a live fire stressful conditions so that they react instinctively the right way. And I think they had something like 1,600 of them done. So I think it's 7 or 8% of the requirement is what they met. And the problem is it's predictable when you don't train people to react the right way under live fire conditions. It's predictable that they're going to act in ways that you don't want them to. They're going to abandon their partners because they get scared or they don't know what to do. They're not going to use the radio equipment that they have the right way and call mayday repeatedly. They're not going to acknowledge things the way they're supposed to do if you don't train the people. So
We were out there last week when Hartford Fire Department displayed some of the new equipment. The fact that they got new equipment, is that an admission of guilt that there was something wrong that day?
that's an interesting question. You know, typically in a negligence claim, what you do after the fact, the remedial measure is not to be looked on as evidence. It might be something you consider in the public, but a courtroom would probably not look at that. This isn't a negligence case, nor is it a products liability case. But I'll tell you what, I mean, obviously, you're always improving the equipment, and I do know that there were reports that they had $1 million plus grant from some national branch of government or agency, and they were planning on spending that money, and I guess they're now spending that on improved equipment and communication. So that's all good. I mean, it's kind of like what we want them to do. I think that Kevin Bell would have been alive if they would have used the tools they had, made sure they were functioning, and if everybody was trained to react and did react the way they were expected to. And ultimately, after 8 minutes and 3 seconds, when you're running out of air, there's just a limit to what a human body can take. And so they didn't need this newer equipment, I guess, to answer your question, in order to save them. They could have saved them with what they had.
Do you believe that air bottle was full at the beginning of their shift?
I don't have any factual knowledge of that. I do know that firefighters regularly check their air bottles when they come in. They come in and they check, and you can make a visual inspection of your equipment, and I'm sure everybody would do that. It's just like putting on your belt in the morning. But there's things that you can tell from a visual inspection, opening the cylinder, closing it, making sure it seems to work. There's things you can't check without a machine calibration. These firefighters, they don't calibrate their equipment every day with machines.
One other thing, you mentioned that you did not speak to John Morey under oath. Does that presume that you've deposed the other 2 people that are named in this suit?
We haven't deposed anybody yet because we haven't had a case where we had subpoena authority. People that we've spoken to were willing to come forward. They were patriots and they were willing to speak off the record. And some of them may be deposed and they'll be able to give their accounts of what happened under oath.
You said that some firefighters told you that members of the rapid intervention team were pleading to be sent in. How many firefighters said that? What did they say?
I'm not going to go into numbers and specifics, I'm sorry.
Is there a number that you're looking for the lawsuit, a financial number?
No, I think that's up to a jury of Kevin's peers to determine.
Okay, everyone good?